We are back for episode number 47 of the Auld Triangle podcast with myself, Ian O'Neill, and my co-host, Sandy Stevenson and Caoilte Barra. And we've got a Trojan amount of Irish MMA as normal to talk about over the next hour and a half or 2 hours or so. Back from Vegas. Great week down there. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Ian Garry. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Well, fantastic week. Apologies if I'm a little bit croaky, if my voice sounds a little bit weird. I'm fighting off the Vegas flu. There's a bit of a dose going around there. Don't know whether you know, lads, or not, but I'm not the first Ian that got caught up with a bit of a dose down in Vegas. But we're fighting through it. We'll get through the podcast today, and we'll talk about all things Irish MMA. How are the boys? How are you keeping today?
Wonderful. No Ians are safe from the bird flu or something, is it?
No, that fucking Vegas flu is a bastard. Yeah, it's like, oh my god. I was I got back in. You'd be busy week down there. You're going over and back, and you're recording, you're editing, and you're putting clips out on socials and everything.
We'll just
like
give
that.
a little clap as well, actually. Sorry, we should have given you a proper, but fair fucking play to you, He's after coming off a mighty week in Vegas, biggest pay-per-view for the UFC of the year. Ian and O'Neill, front and centre, repping the Auld Triangle, repping SevereMMA, and absolutely killing it. So fair fucks you, man. I'm not surprised that you're sick now, because you've put in a hard out shift there for the past week.
Yeah, it's heavy going. Thanks a million, by the way. It was heavy going, and I think, little sleep, little eating, kind of moving here and there didn't help things. But Jesus Christ, I got off the flight and I was dying. I was dying yesterday. And I was like, fuck it. I thought I couldn't record yesterday. We were supposed to do it. Well, no one will know, but we break down the fourth wall here. We were supposed to do it, but I wouldn't have been able to do it yesterday, to be honest. But once I got the fever out of the system, not too bad today. Throat is a little bit scratchy, but no, look, it was a great week overall. Won't let the sickness take away from it. A great card. Look, obviously, I wanted to come on here and try and break down the week of Ian Garry in terms of media day, press conferences, and the fight itself, obviously, which would have been the most important thing. And unfortunately, we didn't get to do that, lads. And I think that's a good place to start today on today's podcast, just about the happenings surrounding Ian Garry and the unfortunate circumstances of an event that he was dealt last week. Obviously, a lot of outside noise coming into this fight. He would have been given an opportunity last week at UFC 296 to go in there and silence the critics and remind everybody who he is. And that is a tremendous fighter. And I feel that, I was confident enough on the last episode of the Auld Triangle that Ian Garry was going to go in there and put on that performance against Vicente Luque, but we didn't get the chance to see that. What we do get the chance to see is a fresh matchup in a couple of months' time, and that's versus Jeff Neal. I'm looking forward to seeing Ian. We wish him a speedy recovery too. Obviously, pneumonia is not a nice thing to have. And obviously you're not going to be able to fight. Look, I had a bit of a fever and a sore throat, lads. And I was like, I'm going to die. I don't want to do anything. I don't know what it's like, having a flu that develops into pneumonia, having to go in there and fight for 15 minutes against top level competition in the cage. So you have to be a bit forgiving to Ian Garry for pulling out. But look, it has to be said, given the circumstances, very unfortunate timing for Ian here. Not so much from the fact, that people will add on to the criticism of him, but more so that he didn't get the chance to go out there and showcase his abilities. Like I said, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the week's going, looking from the outside in. Obviously, from my perspective, when news first broke, I kind of suggested that we heard rumours at the media day that he was not going to be there, and he further confirmed those rumours by reaching out to Ian's wife, Layla, to say that he was not going to be at the media day, but had every intention to be at the press conference. Towards the end of the media day, off the record, we were hearing rumours that he wasn't going to be at the press conference either. And then came the confirmation from Dana White on Wednesday night, I believe, that yeah, he was not going to be fighting whatsoever. So, Caoilte, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it first.
Yeah, it's shite enough really for him, isn't it? You can't. I feel like he's been in the firing line all along in the build up to this fight, and then I think it's to no fault of his own. People have now used it as more ammunition to keep going at him and at him and at him. But he can't do anything about it. He got sick. It's such a shame. I imagine every intention to turn up at the press conference was in hope that it was only a cold that could be maybe from traveling or whatever, that could have been gone in the morning type of job. But it's tough. I can imagine it's the last thing. It's definitely the last thing he wanted to happen, is to pull out a fight in such a massive fight week and a massive card with a massive opportunity. But look, it's so unfortunate for him. On the bright side, there is another fight booked. We do get to see him in a fight that was previously scheduled against Jeff Neal, and we get to see probably, I'd say it'll be a feisty enough build up to that now as well. So at least we've seen him rebooked, and we know that he'll be recovered by then, and hopefully he's not too ill as well,
100%, very well said. I'm sure you have similar thoughts around the whole kind of circumstances surrounding the pullout, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of worst case scenario in ways, I guess, for Ian not being able to go in there and compete, and also even not go to the press conference and kind of have his say, I guess. Coming into this fight week, I genuinely, and I still think it was the biggest fight week outside of McGregor for an Irishman in the UFC ever. So it was a huge week for him. He obviously had kind of the world against him coming in, and the week that transpired turned out to be, when you think of the press conferences, it was a lot of people kind of talking about the chaos and kind of disgusting comments from the likes of Strickland and Dricus du Plessis and Sean O'Malley, and I'm probably forgetting someone because I'm sure there was something else. But the focus coming in was all centered around Ian Garry. What's this press conference going to be like with Ian Garry? So that was going to be his opportunity, and I do think that Ian would have shown up. Like I think he probably would have been outnumbered and outmatched in the verbal sparring, to be honest with you. But he definitely would have coming out swinging. I think that's just the way Ian kind of is. But he didn't get to do that, and obviously, as you mentioned, I did reach out to. When you started to hear kind of, okay, you would kind of let us know, look, he hasn't shown up for media day, he was supposed to be first on, and then it's like, right, what's the story here? So you reach out and you get confirmation that he's not shown up, and then I asked the question about, is he going to be at the press conference? And I think in retrospect it was very carefully worded, that Ian has every intention of going, when at the time no one knew what was kind of going on in the background, and probably the reality was he was sick and he was trying to battle through it or whatever. We don't know. But yeah, he didn't get to make it to the fight, and he didn't get to respond, and he kind of just gets forgotten about. Like with all the focus was on him kind of coming into this, even though there's these huge fights on the card. It was all about Ian Garry. But then, come Sunday morning, nobody's really talking about him. So now I do
think,
good
point. That is a very good point.
And I actually think that I missed. There was so much going on. I missed some of the news cycle. So I had heard someone saying that. I don't know if it was on the Ringer show or which show. Someone was talking about that. Apparently, Dana said that a number of fights had been offered to Vicente Luque. Was that the case? And then instead they went with the Neil matchup or something.
Yeah. So the question was asked before I got the chance to ask Dana about Ian Garry and Neil Magny and Jeff Neal. When he came out, Dana just came out to the press conference and announced all those fights. Ian versus Jeff was announced on that. So somebody followed up and asked, why wasn't Vicente Luque rebooked? And Dana just said that, he was offered a bunch of fights and he didn't accept them. Now, I should have probably followed up on that maybe a little bit more. I didn't. But we don't know whether it was on the night, whether it was, he was offered that one in in March. But then I did ask Dana, like, when I got the chance to speak with him, you know, was the plan for Ian Garry, if he had got a win over Vicente Luque, was the plan originally to send him to Miami to fight Jeff Neal? And he did tell me that Vicente Luque was offered that fight and he turned it down. So
okay,
I think, you know, that is a strange decision for me, to be honest. A strange decision. Now, I don't know what Luque think. Look at it. If Luque thought he was confident coming into this fight, I don't know why you wouldn't take it again. But in all fairness, when you're in that position, you know, you have shown up and you have signed the contract and you are there, and, you know, it wasn't your fault that the fight fell through. So maybe Vicente Luque was just wanted a fresh kind of look, wanted a fresh matchup, and that's fair. But, I mean, the Jeff Neal fight is a lot more spicier, isn't it, lads? It's a lot more spicier.
That's what I was thinking immediately, is like, you know, from a storyline perspective, this is a better matchup. Like, all of the, when the world was kind of piling on Ian Garry, and, you know, Ian and Layla were, you know, from their perspective, it's like, what the hell is going on? This is too much. Anyone who kind of, I suppose, anyone who came to the defense of, or to offer the perspective of Ian and Layla, were met with, there was the two things. So it was the way that Ian talked about Neil Magny and the hitting the, or talking about hitting the kid incident, and it was the Jeff Neal mugshot. So like, that was like front and center all fight week. So now you have a situation where Ian Garry is fighting Jeff Neal, and they have a fight booked again. And now that, you know, as you said, that's spicy. So that's going to be, you know, a big part of the story of this fight. And yeah, it's a more interesting storyline fight. Whether it's a more interesting stylistic matchup, that's up for debate, I suppose. Yeah,
interesting. I think it's a similar enough kind of stylistic match in terms of, I think Vicente Luque has a lot more grappling ability than Jeff Neal, so I think that's one thing that Ian Garry won't have to worry about as much as he would have had to worry about in that Vicente Luque fight. But nonetheless, I guess maybe we were a little bit unfair to say that people weren't talking about him on Sunday, because they were kind of talking about this matchup. But you're definitely right. It seemed like, without even having competed on Saturday night, that kind of story was a little bit brushed under the carpet a bit, because, you know, you had the Leon win, you had the Pantoja win, you had other big stories on the card like Shavkat winning, you had as well. And that's how fickle the MMA fan base is. That's how quickly shit can go away here. But I think
it's
the number one ingredient
to capitalize. Like,
that's it. That's 100%. And the number one ingredient for brushing things under the carpet is going out there and putting on a great performance and winning. I think it was unfortunate that Ian didn't get to do that over in Vegas last weekend. But look, at that time will come in March, and we'll get to see it. And hopefully he is recovering well. And that's all I think we can say on that before we move on, guys. And
what was, just before we do move on, what was the I guess the feeling like on the ground about it all? Like, you were there. Like, what was the sentiment from fans and from media around the whole situation?
The sentiment from media was not good, if I'm being honest. This was before we found out that he was sick. You know, there was a lot of, you know, eyes up to the sky when we found out. Like, not necessarily. I'll tell you my perspective first. When I found out that he wasn't going to be at the media day, I was genuinely shocked and surprised. I was like, what? Like, because I don't think Ian was ever going to shy away from any of this stuff, and I don't think it's in his character to shy away from any of that stuff. I actually think, you know, he probably would flourish in that opportunity to kind of come back at people. So from knowing and following Ian throughout his career, I was genuinely surprised. There's a lot of people saying, oh, I knew he wouldn't show up and stuff like that. But I was like, I'm actually genuinely surprised. But he did get a lot of kind of, you know, people that were there and saying, well, that makes sense that he didn't show up or that he's not going to come. But like, this was without knowing that he was sick at the time. And I think there was nothing else really said after that. Once we found out the news, obviously on Wednesday night, that he was sick and he had pneumonia and he was not going to be able to compete, like, everything started to make sense right now. It didn't make any sense to me that, you know, you're going to be putting out the hype videos and you're basically getting yourself prepared for fight week, and then suddenly just you're not going to show up. Like, what has changed from one moment to the next? So that's when, you know, more questions started getting asked. And then, you know, there was rumors going around that there was maybe the fight was going to be off and he was going to have to pull out due to the illness and stuff like that. Those things are only rumors that I couldn't confirm. Obviously, Dana broke the news then and did confirm that. So there would have been, you know, hindsight is a great thing, I guess. But like, before we knew that anybody was sick over there, yeah, the reaction in the media room wasn't great, to be honest. But I think they were more understanding of the situation once the news came out. And then it was off to the races. Then on Thursday, Friday, you're away, you're doing other things, and you're focusing on other fights. So. I mean, from me, you know, I was disappointed I didn't get to kind of. I was looking forward to seeing Ian in live action. I was looking forward to asking him a few questions. You know, I was looking forward to helping him build towards this fucking Irish card that seems to be an oasis in the desert to us right now. Really, you know what I mean? It's like Dana White comes out and he says that, you know, he's bringing Ireland back for 2 events, and one is UFC and one is boxing, and then he just says that he's not coming back at all. So we're getting mixed messages
on that, didn't he?
Very mixed messages, like, and yeah, we'll wait to see. I would say at this stage it's very unlikely we will get an event in 2024, but time will tell. You never know. Like, it could come upon us really, really quick. It has happened like that before, and it'll be interesting to see what happens down the line. But look, like I said to you guys, like, in terms of disappointment, is like, yeah, it was there, but I feel it would have been a bigger one if you had been in a co-main event or a main event slot where it was a big hit to the card. But for me, in terms of covering the card as in its entirety, no, there's plenty of other good fights for me to go down there, and you know, I was happy enough with the week's work, and fingers crossed I'll get the opportunity to go and see Ian fight live again at another time. So all is not lost when it comes to that. And obviously your health is your wealth, and that's what you have to look after. And yeah, haters going to hate, as they say. We shall move on. Let's talk about Combate Global, lads. Cian Cowley, Stephen Costello, Palahan, Lee Hammond, Katie Saul, all in action at Combate Global. Let's start with Palahan, the main event. Another great fight from Palahan. Saw the majority of this fight, put on another good performance. Slow start in round 1, found his groove in rounds 2 and rounds 3. In that fight, I think, you know, the slow start in round 1 could have came off the long layoff. Maybe it took him a little while to get back into the groove, but he really got back into the groove in rounds 2 and rounds 3, Caoilte, and just deserved the unanimous decision, 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards as well. A couple of fouls throughout the fight, which was a little bit of a kind of a...
I was a theme on the night.
Yeah. I was shocked that there was no deducted points in that fight.
Exactly, yeah. What did you say the referee's performance?
Great, yeah. Look, it was kind of a typical Palahan fight. It was very entertaining, and they always are. It's always fast paced, a lot of striking, and brilliant. Thought Pa did really well in that second and third round. As we said, started slow a little bit in the first, but really got his groove going in the second. He was able. At times, I think he didn't get to keep the range as much as he wanted to. Your man was really rushing in, trying to close that distance and fight in the pocket a little bit. But Pa did really well to keep him at bay and land his shots nicely. And it was a little war. And you can see why Combate love him so much, is the fact that he's willing to go in there and just absolutely go at it with these lads and put on really entertaining fights. Look, there's a reason he was in the main event. I thought he was exceptional, much more mature performance than maybe we've seen before. I feel like he's getting a lot better, and I'm really excited to see how Combate try and build him next. If that was a main event slot, what will they do afterwards?
Yeah, solid performance. I liked Andy in Paz that we've seen the mix up of a couple of takedowns as well. Unpredictable in terms of, you know, we would have seen Pa would have got sucked into just a stand-up war and didn't mix it up, but we did see a well-rounded Palahan here. He was dominant in a couple of takedowns, crisp on the feet, getting in and out of the pocket too much, not taking that much damage in comparison to his previous fights as well, and a really solid performance from him overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think he hit a suplex as well at the end of the first. But yeah, like it was, as you said, I think the commentators were spotlighting as well, his footwork, especially as the fight grew on. The first 2 rounds relatively close. I would have given Romero the first, Pa the second, but it was really that 3rd round that I think he put a stamp on it, and his volume and his pace, and he really just kind of upped the gears. And going into round 3, Romero was kind of on his stool saying to his coaches, I'm tired here. And from there, if he was tired going into that, I'd say he was exhausted by the end of the 3rd, because
when you're going in with that mentality going into round 3 to last the pace for round 3 shows that you had good heart. But yeah, you're spot on what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, and like Pat puts himself in danger in fights too, with his style, but it makes it very entertaining. And I think that he was very composed as the fight wore on, and I think he grew into the fight, which is really good to see. So yeah, like his boxing looked crisp, his footwork, he was exiting after his combos, he was going to the body up top as well. And yeah, it was a fun fight to watch, and another win for Palahan, who has now won, was he 6-2 now? So he's building a nice record. He's obviously kind of traded some wins and losses in the last few, but he's been in tough fights ever since he's gone pro. So like I think he's gotten some really solid experience over in Combate. To be fair, we criticize him a lot, but he was thrown into the fire, and he looks to be a very solid fighter there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know that he likes to be active too, and he had a very inactive 2023 due to injuries and a couple of things. And I'd expect a big 2024 from Palahan. I'll stick with you, Andy, for Lee Hammond. Obviously, a real stark contrast from round to round here in terms of dominance and the way the fight was going. And it's not the first time, I guess, we would have seen that with Lee Hammond either. Obviously, the Kurt Holloway fight, we would have seen him in some dominant positions where he got caught. And it was the same here. Obviously, round 1, multiple submission attempts, very dominant round, looking good on the feet, looking in control of the fight. I don't know how he didn't win by rear naked choke, to be honest. I think Castillo did very well to fight off that rear naked choke, amongst other submissions in the first round. And I think, we could compare this fight to, certain fights where a fighter hurts another fighter in the first round on the feet and then kind of offloads on him and maybe drains the gas tank. And maybe Lee did that to himself. I don't know. We'd have to ask him himself in terms of, maybe he gassed himself out a little bit going for all those submissions, and he didn't expect Castillo to be able to kind of fight through all of them. But Castillo did very well. And I don't know, after seeing round 1 and seeing him immediately shooting in round 2, you would have thought that was a horrible idea for Castillo. Yeah. But maybe he felt something in there that we didn't feel, or it's just unfortunate to see that. And Lee has just been unlucky in those last 2 fights. The last 2 fights have been similar enough in the way they've went, where he's been dominant, but then that domination has turned into a finish. And it's unfortunate to see from Lee, but there'll be bigger days ahead for him, I'm sure. What were your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, it's look, I thought he looked brilliant, as you said, in the first round. Like it was like Castillo was in a tornado, just being tossed around, and 1 minute he's defending an armbar, the next it's a rear naked choke. Lee, he was putting on a grappling clinic, where I think I saw someone commenting on the video I put up of the sequence, where they're like, this looks like someone showing every single sequence in jiu-jitsu to like a demonstration, and like that's kind of what it looked like almost. But yeah, I don't know, I haven't heard from Lee. I'd be interested to hear from him, what his thoughts were, or what happened. Like, was it just, did he kind of expend too much energy? Did he have a gas dump? Did he get hurt with one of the shots that Castillo landed when he had him down? Was it mental? I don't know, but yeah, it's the second fight in a row now where Lee has looked phenomenal, but ultimately into the second round and gets finished, which is very unfortunate. And it's a bit, it's a huge momentum swing for Lee's career currently, and to where he is, where, had he gone in there and finished Kurt Holloway, we could be looking at Lee Hammond, tough winner. We could be looking at Lee Hammond booked in the UFC. Whereas now, you know, you don't get the UFC call. You're going in here against a 45 veteran, and you're picking up another loss. It's not the end of the world, but it's, you know, Lee's going to have to build back to getting towards where he was as far as his proximity to the UFC. I think he can get back there, certainly. But also maybe it's not a bad thing to go through this when you're not in the UFC. You know, let's say this happens to you in your debut and your next fight, you could be looking at 2 fights and getting bounced out. So, yeah, look, I don't know what, there's probably some adjustments that Lee needs to make. I don't know what they are, but it's unfortunate.
What would you like to see next for Lee Caoilte? I mean, is it kind of maybe getting himself situated with an opponent with similar enough experience inside the cage? I mean, like Andy said, went in there against Castillo, almost 40-fight veteran. Cartolaba, very experienced as well. And sometimes, you know, you need to experience those experiences, but, you know, sometimes fighting guys similar enough kind of, Lee is maybe levels above a couple of different fighters in different areas, but in terms of in-cage experience, he has like not that much in-cage experience in terms of in the professional ranks anyway. And I'm wondering what the best kind of route forward is for him now. Is it another fight with Combate? Does he look at other organizations? I'm wondering, is the UFC in the back of his mind? I'm curious to hear what you think.
It's a tough one. There's so many options at the moment with different promotions, kind of dabbling in Ireland and picking up Irish fighters that he kind of, I'd say he'd have the pick of the bunch given the fact that he featured on Tough and he featured on all these different promotions. I imagine there may be another opportunity with Combate. That's just me speculating, but look, I'll be honest, I would, for the type of fighter that Lee is, and I guess from a development perspective, I'd love to see a fighter like Lee in the likes of a Cage Warriors, where we'd see you know, a kind of a pathway of 3 or 4 fights to a title and then to the UFC, because ultimately I want to see him in the UFC. And I imagine it's where he wants to go after being on Tough. So look, I can't imagine that happening. I could be wrong, but that would be one. If that can't be the case, the likes of 1-fight deals in these promotions might be the way forward, where you can pick up some good money and get some fights and hopefully get matched well. Because when you go to these fights in 1-fight promotions, the issue is you're the away fighter and you could get thrown to an absolute lion of an opponent straight away. And sometimes that might not be the best way to develop. But yeah, it is a tough one, but maybe Combate is the way forward. If there was, you know, like some Cage Warriors, there'd be a few fun ones there you could make. But I'm interested to see. But as I said, maybe Combate next again. It might be a good spot. They seem to pay well, so wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, 100%. I can't disagree with pretty much everything that you said there. Moving on, Stephen Costello, Andy picked up a savage win in a fight where I don't know, maybe the Dr.
Ref of the year.
Dr. Nick of mixed martial arts referees was in here, didn't really know his arse from his elbow in this one, I don't think.
It was something. There was
point deductions. There was wrong arms raised in the result, and when you're in the midst of a fight, when you're in the midst of a fight and you're having to deal with all of that mayhem, that's not easy. But you know what? Stephen did very, very well to be able to kind of work through all of that, all of the confusion, the point deductions, eye pokes, everything like that, and overall. A 28-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards, given the circumstances, was a very fair result. And it's another solid win for Stephen Costello and a good debut at Combate Global too.
Yeah, it was, God, I forgot how much of a calamity this fight was from an officiating point of view. The 2 lads both landed what looked completely accidental to me, low blows. They're each deducted a point, which probably should have never happened. Thankfully, it was, I guess, both of them, so it didn't impact the overall result. But yeah, look, Stephen came out. I thought he used his grappling well in the first. The second, I gave it to his opponent. I thought he came on quite strong in the striking department, and a nice body kicks and stuff. But yeah, after the 2, that was the second round. That was kind of the weird one with the point deductions, etc. And the ref kind of saying, you know, I'm not afraid to disqualify you both. This is my cage. Costello came out in round 3, got the takedown after about a minute, got the body triangle. The ref at one point was looking like he was going to stand it up while Stephen had a body triangle secured, which was also very bizarre. But then, he did what he needed to do from that position. He was looking for subs, he was landing shots, and he won the third. So a hard fought win for Stephen Costello, and fair play to him. I'm glad there was no shenanigans in the end.
Well, there was plenty of fucking shenanigans.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Then his hand doesn't get raised. So.
Yeah, like all the confusion that was created by that ref in the middle of the fight, he continued on. He raised the wrong guy's hand. Like, I mean,
that was the perfect ending.
Did that ref
was like
have
the
a
chef's
bet on
kiss.
the other guy? I'm wondering, did the ref have a few quid there on Olivedo Bahares in that fight? Because Jesus, I never seen anything like it in my life. And that look to the camera too when he was raising the hand. It's like I have to say again, lads, like when you're going through a fight and you have all that confusion, it's a lot that you have to deal with, on top of a lad going in there and just trying to hurt you and trying to land strikes. So I have to give credit where credit is due to Stephen Costello. He did a fantastic job to kind of combat all of that to get the win. And even when the referee tried to take the win off him at the end of the fight, he still handled it all with grace, and did himself proud. And good win there for him. As did Cian Cowley, another fantastic win for him as well. First round TKO, did a lot of damage in that phase as well, Andy, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean he kicked the legs off his opponent. Like he just butchered him with leg kicks, with low calf kicks, split open the shin by the looks of it. And he also, not forgetting, he dropped him with I can't remember if it was a left hand or a right hand, but he dropped him with a punch with about 10 seconds to go in the round. Now, his opponent kind of got back to his feet quick enough, but still it was dominant from Cowley. I thought he had his opponent guessing the entire time, and ultimately he wasn't able to come out. The doctor waved it off. After the first, it was a clean performance from the Warrior.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And look, I think you'd have similar enough opinion, Caoilte, yourself, and what's next for Cian is he's made a good statement there in his Combate Global debut, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more fights down the line for him. But it was a top performance from Cian, wasn't it?
I loved it. The low kicks, pure Thai-esque. Your man was heavy on that front foot as well, so Cian was absolutely butchering his lead leg with it. And it's mad. I actually seen, I'm not sure if the fight was stopped. It could have been, but I seen the shin split open like that before, and someone walking directly in front of me back at a Muay Thai show in, I think it was 2015, and it was grim viewing. Now your man was able to walk, so the fact that this fella had to be stretchered just shows the damage that was done. That was mental. Crazy performance, beautiful display of leg kicks from a Thai boxer, or obviously previously Thai boxer, now an MMA fighter, and I thoroughly enjoyed it now personally. Great performance. Can't wait for what's next.
What would you like to see next for Cian? Because he had a very rough start to his career where he went, I think it was 2-5, and now since then he's come back in 2022. He's won his last 4 in MMA. Obviously, a couple of the opponents, not the greatest of records, etc. But he went in there against a 5-2 guy in Daniel Sanchez. So, like he's rectified his career essentially over the last couple of years. What would you like to see for next? He
was put in there with tough competition early days over at Brave as well. Sam Patterson's fighting in the UFC right now, good prospect as well. So, he had to build himself back up, and I think he's done an excellent job to build himself back up, and getting more of those kind of fights. I think fighting as regularly as he can was going to do him the world of good, because his record doesn't really portray how good a fighter that he is right now at this stage anyway. And I think getting a couple more fights under his belt is going to do him the world of good, really. And I'm excited. He has an exciting style. He's like a devastating striker. So I think, put him in there. I don't know how, maybe we'll try and get to talk to him in the new year, but I don't know how long his contract is, whether it was a one-fight deal or whether it was a multi-fight deal. But, for him, it's trying to, see what he wants. Does he want to get to the UFC eventually? Is he happy to kind of take these kind of fights at Combate as well? It'd be interesting to see, but I definitely think he's on the right track, that's for sure. That Combate Global PFL, obviously took place a couple of weeks back.
And then so there was Katie Saul. It wasn't televised, but although we had this weird hang on, lads, we haven't actually talked about the real main event, which was whoever the presenter is for Combate Global cleaning his glasses for about 15 minutes. Those glasses, I've never been cleaner.
He didn't even wear them. Like what?
Fair play to. I will say we've criticized them many times. Fair play, Combate. I believe it's actually Combate Global.
Andy, easy, Tiger.
But they had a stream for us this time, so fair play to them. Now we didn't get we saw a snippet, I think, accidentally of Katie Saul's fight, which she won via TKO. I think it was the second round. It was, you couldn't tell. I saw she looked like she cut her opponent open with maybe some elbows, I think, from Mount. It was kind of hard to see. It wasn't televised, so we kind of saw a snippet, but it's kind of hard to go off of, was it a TKO? Then it cut away. So Katie Saul anyway was in action, also represented SPG Ireland and got a good win. So fair play to her. We haven't forgot about you. The TV unfortunately was not showing your fight.
Yeah. Very unfortunate circumstances there. Like, I mean, we were lucky to see what we did see given previous Combate Global broadcasts. So at least we got to see we got to see 4 out of the 5 fights. So that's a good good stint for Combate. So hopefully they can continue, if we're going to get these Irish guys and women fighting over in Combate, hopefully they continue on that deal with Fight TV where we can watch it and
get it on TG Car.
That's what we really need. Now you're talking. Yeah, we almost made it happen for you, Caoilte, before. We were talking to Campbell. We were trying to make it happen. You want to put in the word there into TG Carter and get an all-Irish broadcast on there. Yourself and Richard Kiley.
No, G. Begley is Kupla Fuckle as well. Now,
three-person boot. Yourself,
ideal.
D. Begley.
Sinead Newell as well this year.
She does, yeah.
Maybe we can do a revival. Now the numbers are increasing.
Actually, we need to stop saying it. Chris, you're going to be out of a job here in a second. Hang on. The board.
We have no chance here, lads.
Right. PFL Dublin went down a couple of weeks back. Lots and lots of good stories coming out of there. And the first is Nate Kelly, who put in tremendous performance in the main event. Excuse me, my voice is kind of acting up here now a little bit. So Nate Kelly, I think I don't know, I'll have to go back and listen. I may have predicted this absolutely perfectly in terms that he was going to get a rear naked choke finish, or at least a submission finish in round 1. Showcased a good level of ability on the feet before taking Dimitri Solomis down and locking in that rear naked choke. Top performance from Nathan Kelly. And, look at on top of everything else, all the criticism that came maybe with this card and everything like that, to have a guy like Nathan Kelly at the top of the card, an excellent representative of Irish mixed martial arts. I was delighted for him to see him get that moment and put in a really dominant performance in there. Andy, you were up at the event. What did it feel like at PFL?
Yeah, it was badly needed. God, it feels like forever ago now, that PFL event. But look, it was obviously a mixed bag for the Irish fighters on the card. So the event itself was muted at times. The crowd, it wasn't like it was every second of the event was, high volume, and Tuke and Nathan Kelly in the main event really lifted the crowd. And I think that was a nice solid ending to the card, where you have a Dublin guy, with a lot of support, got a huge pop, and he gets the win. And as you said, Nathan Kelly could not be a better representative for Irish MMA. The way he carries himself, the way, he was so open in the lead up in varying different degrees with various media outlets, etc. I think that he's brilliant. And I think that, we talked about the matchup and, should have been a bigger name and all that stuff. And I think there's still time for that. This was a first event in Dublin, and I think that they have something there with Nathan Kelly. So it's going to be very interesting to me to see what happens in 2024 with him, where they put him. He's called for the 2024, US tournament. So yeah, I thought it was a great night for him, and I'm very interested to see how they push him moving forward.
Yeah, indeed. The back take Caoilte, which led to the choke, was unbelievable from Nathan Kelly, wasn't it? Barry Oglesby must have been very happy now watching that.
The speed that he did that is just insane.
Ridiculous.
And your man, he's a big man. He got around so quick as well. Like, so to take that back as quick as he did and then get the sub. Yeah, there's a reason he's a jiu-jitsu black belt pulling off subs like that in the main event in the 3 Arena.
100%. And yeah, what's next for Nathan Kelly? You know, I think you might try and get him into another kind of maybe headline or co-main event slots in Ireland as well. You know, if the big tournament does come along, by all means he should take it. But I wouldn't think that there's any major rush in that. I think Nathan Kelly is a guy who's going to be around for many, many years, and there's no rush when it comes to that. When you get to that tournament, that's a tough tournament. It's one of the toughest tournaments in the sport right now. You want to make sure you're ready for that as well. And you know, it'll be interesting to see. But look, at Nathan he's really liked by the PFL. He's got loads of options, and options are good in mixed martial arts, I'll tell you that. Caoilte, I'll go to you for Franz Malambo. Obviously didn't go his way against Khrushchev Kakarov in the Bantamweight Championship finals. Was winning round 1, was landing some crisp striking. As I whistled there as I was talking. Was landing some crisp striking, but I was worried that he was leaving himself inside the pocket a little bit too much, and Kakarov landed that big overhand right in round 2, which led to the TKO loss, and very unfortunate circumstances for Franz. And the first thing that rang to my mind was it was similar enough to what we seen with his fight with
Bandejas, was it?
Yeah, Ricky Bandejas. Your thoughts on the fight, please?
Yeah, I thought it started really, really strong. I was after the first round, I was feeling quite confident he might be able to continue and take it. One thing I forgot about before the fight until it actually began was the 5-minute rounds, actually. Or not 5 minutes, the 5 rounds. 5 rounds. Yeah, that caught me off. And I did wonder what type of pace the fight would be at, but there was good pace to it. I thought Franz was sharp, looked really solid in the first round, was able to pick off the strikes well and not get hit with some massive power shots either. And then, as you said, second round, got caught with that big shot. I think he questioned the stoppage as well, but I think completely fine. I think there was a moment that he may have said something to the ref. It could be
maybe a little bit right directly after the fight, but you're not within your senses at that stage. Exactly. And I thought, in fairness, we'll talk about stoppages in the next fight that we're going to talk about now in a minute, but I don't think there can be any argument there from the Franz stoppage. Just very unfortunate, and a good performance from Kakarov there. Andy, any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just another unfortunate one, and as you've already kind of said about it's like the Bandejas one where, you know, Franz is looking brilliant and he kind of just gets caught with a shot, and that's MMA. And yeah, look, I think Franz will be back. I think they've got something like I'd stick him right back in the tournament next year. I'd love to see him back in there. And yeah, I had zero issue with the stoppage. Like, I thought he kind of like this was kind of a topic of debate on press row, and like I was very much in the camp of he looked like he went out, and if he was, you know, awake when it was stopped, it was because he'd been woken back up by one of the hammer fists. So I thought it was a solid stoppage. And yeah, it's a rough one. I thought Franz was looking brilliant in the first, and look, it wasn't his night in the end, but I think he'll be back next year in that tournament.
100% he'll be back next year in that tournament, and I think we can say the same about John Mitchell as well. Strange one here for John. I mean, what happened in round 1 was a massive error in terms of when John had him hurt. Excuse me all here now, my thoughts are all over the place. Jakub Kazuba, he had Jakub hurt in round 1, and the referee Rich Mitchell kind of came in to stop the fight. But okay, coming in and getting close to stop a fight is one thing, but for me, when you're getting as close as to stop a fight when you're falling in and touching someone, you know, that a split second can cause some hesitation from John Mitchell there, or cause some confusion. And that's the biggest thing that I would have a criticism over that sequence of events there. Look, at very tough position for Rich Mitchell to be in, an excellent referee, but that was a big mistake in a big fight. And I feel really John was a little bit hard done by in terms of, you can't stress the importance of like how big like 1 or 2 seconds can be in moments like that. And if John felt that pressure on his back from Rich Mitchell, did he hesitate for a moment? Did he pull back on some shots? No, we don't know that. But that fight could have been stopped and no one would have really argued, but it didn't. And in fairness to Kazuba, he came back, hurt John in round 2 and got the finish in round 2. And, John took it like a champ, to be fair. He took it as gracefully as you would expect. Obviously John is, I think he handled himself excellently on fight week. Before the fight, great interview with Andy. After the fight, obviously really not jumping down. Like he could have easily criticised the ref there for what happened in round 1, chose not to, so fair play to him. And I think it was very disappointing overall, but look, he'll be back. That was a learning curve for him, Andy, and just curious to see what your perspective was from watching it live in terms of when I was watching it on the TV. He did come over, I think, Rich Mitchell, and say something to you guys, didn't he?
No, not to my knowledge, at least not when I was there. Anyway, but it was similar thoughts to the Malambo fight, to be honest with you, where John looked brilliant in the first, and obviously it's a bit different with regards to that, the kind of the non-stoppage. He obviously he landed a flush kind of front kick up the middle that hurt Kazuba. Followed up, and then Kazuba did a great job of wrestling his way out of it and getting back to their feet and going from there. I think, I don't know, I kind of go back and forth on it. Like Rich Mitchell didn't put his hands on it, but he did get very close. He was right up in there. Did it make a difference? I think probably not, but at the same time, I wouldn't be criticizing John if he felt hard done by.
It definitely made a fucking difference. It definitely made a difference. Like, you have to understand, Andy, right? When you're there and you're trying to finish somebody, and then you hear Rich Mitchell talking and defending, then you hear someone touching your back. That is when somebody touches you, when the referee touches you. That's giving the indication that he's thinking about stopping the fight or he wants you to stop. You do not touch the fighters until you're going to stop. Now, I would feel a little bit more strongly about it maybe than other people, but I thought that's a massive error, to be honest. You're either in or you're out. You can't have any indecisiveness there as a referee. When you're touching somebody, you're giving the indication that you want to stop the action. That's all I would say in that situation. Maybe it didn't. I'd have to ask John himself. John will probably say it didn't affect him, but in that moment, I'd say it did a little bit. Because John was trying to sprawl out from being taken down by Kazuba, and he had to deal with Rich Mitchell for a split second on his back, which might have messed up his positioning a little bit too, where he could have opened up, maybe landed a few more strikes, which could have got him finished. But moments like that, with all due respect, I feel would have a difference.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And look, I think I reached out to John just to see how he was with it all, and he seemed in very high spirits, to be honest with you, even coming off the loss. I think he feels that he showed his level, especially in the first round, and that he belongs, and that he's right in the mix there with the top in the European side of PFL. So I realize we're an Irish MMA podcast, and you kind of come in here if someone loses, should I be back next time? Which is kind of what we look for the positive in losses at times. But I really think that John is kind of taking the perspective of, look, this may be a loss, and I'm sure he's disappointed. I'm sure, obviously, there's money attached here as well if you win. But I think it's kind of that first round has shown him his level with regards to the PFL, and I think he'll take that into next season. So again, another disappointing one, but something to build on.
Absolutely. Caoilte, what did you think of it all?
Yeah, the whole ref situation. Actually, while you guys were talking, I watched that exact clip of the ref about 4 or 5 times, and I agree. It does look it looks a mistake from the viewing perspective. I'm not sure. I need to ask John. You need to ask the ref what they're thinking in that situation. But it doesn't look good.
If I thought he said it to Andy, but Rich Mitchell, I think it was Sean that he said it to. He came up to Sean and Graham and said, "Yeah, I did make a mistake in that fight." So Rich Mitchell, in fairness, he admitted the mistake. It was a big mistake. We can't gloss over the fact of that, lads. Do you know what I mean? Rich Mitchell is a fantastic referee, but massive mistake that he made there in round one.
Yeah, look, he's also human.
I don't know why I'm emotional about that. I am very.
Feel very strongly about it, Ian.
I do feel very strongly.
Yeah.
And I felt strongly about it on the day. I don't know.
It's fine.
Maybe that's an extra added connection, and you know.
I mean, you're just speaking. You're being true to your thoughts on it.
Yeah, like and look at. I know that a referee's job is so hard, you know, but. You know,
look, he's also human, so I look from that perspective. We all make mistakes. There's lots of different ways to look at it, but I do think John really, you know, he's handled it really well. He showed what level he's at, how good he can beat on another night, or maybe without 2-3 seconds of a difference there, he could have potentially gotten a finish. Who knows? But I think there's so much positives to take from that. In many ways that he can that it does line up a really exciting kind of fight for next year, that we could, and maybe we even see him get in a position where they build him to a point we could see him headlining one next year as well. You see, and so you might see a Cork man headlining a Dublin card, something like that. But look, lots of positives to take. Fair play to him. He got to the final. I hope he was looked after well from PFL, because they seem to be paying lads okay money, to say the least.
Yeah, 100%. Dylan Tuke put on a fantastic performance in his comeback fight. Obviously, he lost to Jakub Kazuba in his last fight. Look, we kind of said about Dylan that he looked a little bit outsized and outstrengthened in that fight, but he came in and he looked a lot bigger, his frame looked a lot stronger coming into this fight with Yazid Coshain, I think. Coshain, yeah. Clue, to be honest. Picking up a rear naked.
Blind leading the blind here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a brilliant performance by Dylan. We saw him kind of on his bike. I kind of cited that when he kind of got started again. He was on his bike a little bit on the outside, similar enough to what we seen in the Conor Hughes fight, which worked very well for him. He did it the same here. And then he just kind of was like a shark in the waters. He was circling, and then he went in for the kill in round 2, took the back, got the rear naked choke for submission. A brilliant sequence of events, Caoilte, and a good win for Dylan Tuke. And a big moment for Dylan Tuke as well. Look at a guy who has had a rough time of it, has had a lot of trouble come his way, but he's overcome all of that. He's moved over to Scotland. He's developed a new life and a new team over there, over with James Doolan. And you know what? It was good to see Dylan Tuke get this moment as well. And you could see when he was walking out and with his performance, you know, it was great to see him get that moment. And fair play. Dylan Tuke has been around for a long time in Irish mixed martial arts. Kind of has flown in under the radar, was out of action for quite some time. You know, he's put a lot into this sport, and it was nice to see him get a little bit something back in the PFL on that Dublin card. And there's going to be a big 2024 for him over there in PFL as well, which is good to see. Caoilte, your thoughts?
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I was delighted to see him have his moment. He spoke very open and honestly with Andy in the pre-fight, and he's always honest, and he was the same in the post-fight presser as well. I thought in terms of performance, he looked for the first round. You know, he's on the outside. It looked like he was trying to frustrate his opponent Yazid. I'll call him. I can't say the second name, but look, even I was getting a little bit frustrated watching, because we all want to see action, but you could see what he wanted to do. He was trying to force a mistake from his opponent, and then in the second round, we finally see him manage to implement that game plan to perfection and get the finish. So he's come out of there without having to get into a war where he takes unnecessary damage to the head. Come out relatively kind of clean to an extent without much damage, and is able to go again. So and he gets the win and a finish in front of a home crowd. So D1 zone gets a win in front of D1. Can't write it, can you? It's brilliant.
Yeah, great stuff. Andy, you were up close and personal with Dylan, obviously, during fight week as well. Gave a great interview with him. it was a good moment for Dylan. I'm sure you agree with most of what was being said.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment for a guy who, as Quid said, is from like the local area, where Three Arena is. He hasn't fought there in 6 years, and he's coming in, and I'm speaking to him before it, and he's talking about brain damage. He's talking about I have CTE symptoms. He's talking about having essentially nothing to show for, like, and a lot of fighters having nothing to show for their service, I guess, to MMA financially. He's talking about, does he regret going into the sport in the first place? And I'm talking to him even off camera, and I'm like, he's telling me that if he loses, he's going to retire. So like, you're hearing all this stuff, and it's just like, fucking hell, like it's heavy stuff. And then you have a guy that's walking into an arena in front of thousands of fans to fight someone, and it was very like the Conor Hughes fight. But I also think, like, thinking about it more, it was a bit different to the Conor Hughes fight, where he kind of came in with a similar game plan. But in the Conor Hughes fight in the first round, Dylan looked like an absolute maestro, and he was peppering him, and he was hurting him, and he was landing a lot. And I thought he was landing a lot more than he did in this fight in the first round. So, even though it was a similar game plan, there wasn't as much damage. So you're going into a second round where, Dylan hasn't fought here in 6 years. He's coming off a loss to Kazubi. He's talking about potentially retiring, and it's like, this could go one of two ways here. Like, it's kind of on a knife edge where you could potentially go out here and lose, and then that could be a career over. And it's like this somber note, but instead he goes out and gets a finish, and it was an amazing moment, I think, for him in front of a hometown crowd. He got a big pop. And look, Dylan's a very divisive guy in Irish MMA and MMA, and I imagine will continue to be. But he's authentic, and he speaks his mind. And it's not always the prettiest or the most polished way of delivering it. But I do really appreciate the way he kind of opens up and talks about a lot of topics that other fighters don't. So this is a huge week for him. I thought he handled himself very well in the media. And he capped it off with a great performance. So fair play to him, and I'm sure he'll be a key figure in PFL's plans for Dublin moving forward, because he's a guy who you can stick in that arena and he'll get a big reaction.
100%. Very well said, Andy. Last two fights, we'll have to rush through these ones fairly quickly. Obviously, Valentina Scatizzi was forced into a doctor's stoppage. He was one of the nastiest eye injuries that I had seen inside of a cage in a long time. Valentina showed her toughness in that fight, and she went out there and lost to one of the best prospects in the world of mixed martial arts. Like, Dakota Dacheva is sensational.
She's world class,
unbelievable, and it must have been a joy to see her live. Andy, was it?
Yeah, she's unbelievable. Like, she's just so good, and we kind of knew that this was going to be a tough one for Valentina coming in. But yeah, like she was incredibly tough, but she was just outmatched in there. And I think I think Dakota will probably be outmatching the vast majority of the people she goes up against in 125.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Andy. I'm sorry to interrupt. Did Valentina manage to fool the doctor in the corner when he was looking to stop it, and he had a hand over one eye, and he was asked how many fingers he was holding up?
Oh, I missed that. I didn't see that.
Watch it back, because I'm not sure, because we couldn't tell really if she was after managing to fool him, because she was game and ready to go, but he wasn't having it. But yeah, I didn't know if there was anything more about that. But
yeah, I just remember the reaction, like when it was shown on the big screen, like the reaction was just like, oh my god, like look at that. Like, it was, I think once people saw it, was like, nah, this is done. Like, there's no way this is going ahead.
Yeah, even when she was going into the round, from round one, I was like, this fight has to be stopped. Like,
yeah, she was all game for it. She was like, let's go.
100%, like heart all day, but. Yeah, at the end of the day, there was a gap in quality there, which is understandable with Valentina is going in there at 2-1, I believe. They're professional, and Dakota up there with 9-10 fights. So, I mean, look at those are the circumstances that were dealt through the tournament and other pullouts and stuff like that. But I think overall, Valentina proved her toughness there. But, she'll live to fight another day. And I thought that decision was very... was right to be made for the doctor to kind of call that. Last but not least, Nate the Great Kelly defeated Callum Seaton by submission by anaconda choke in round 2, and I thought that was a very good performance by Nathan Kelly as well. Obviously, he was very outspoken to you in the post-fight interview, Andy, about the performance and about everyone who was maybe criticizing his spot on the card. Really, PFL do put on amateur fights in other areas of the world. That's not out of the blue or anything like that. But he went out there, put on a performance, spoke well on the microphone, and ticked off a lot of boxes.
Yeah, well, if he didn't have a target on his back beforehand, he definitely does now. Yeah, look, I thought he went in there, he put on a good display, got a good finish. I kind of said it to him, like I thought he completely outmatched. He completely outmatched Callum Seaton in there, and I think Nate showed that he's ready to face some of the more experienced flyweights in the country. He certainly will have a line of people putting their hand up because it seems like he has caused quite a stir. But look, I actually went, while you were speaking there, I went to check again on our YouTube channel, and if you look at the post-fight interviews on SevereMMA, Nathan Kelly, Dakota Chavis after winning the championship, and Nate Kelly has tripled the views. That's the why he was on this PFL card, because they wanted to draw attention. It was a sales move, and that's just promoting. That's what that is. It's not, is it fair from fighters who have put in the wins and have more fights and have fought better people and all that stuff? No, it's not. But that's not what this is. So I thought Nate, he did all he could do. I thought he put on a really good performance. I thought he spoke well. Whether it caused a stir or not, I thought he spoke well on the mic afterwards and in the post-fight interview. So I imagine we'll probably see him on more cards. And look, there's some brilliant matchups to be made. And I think Nate should go and fight these lads as well, because you're an amateur. Go out and fight every flyweight in Ireland, in the country. Get your experience, and then, there's just loads of great fights to be made there. They'll all exchange wins and losses, and then I think it'll prep all of them massively for when they eventually turn pro, because it's the country is rife with talent at that weight division at the moment at amateur.
100%. Any final thoughts on that, on the PFL card, Caoilte, before we move on?
All good.
All good. Yeah. All good from your end. We're going to take in some regional MMA now. Cage Legacy Iúr Fighting Championships obviously have went down over the past couple of days / weeks. We'll start off with Cage Legacy first. The Rising Stars review took place on the same day as UFC 296 on December 16th in Kilmanagh. Middleweight title fight between Brian Manning and Jess Paulo, who Brian Manning took by unanimous decision. 30-27 on all 3 scorecards from the judges there. Andy, please share your thoughts on that fight, please, sir.
You're all right. So I was just taking a swig of water there.
I looked over. I saw you make
yes, another solid win for Brian Manning, who continues to put himself out there as an entertaining guy, someone who draws a bit of attention on the amateur scene. He's got the gimmicks with the mask, etc. I think he came out as the guy from Saw this time. It was a fun walkout, and look, ultimately he's putting on good performances. He kind of out Jess Paulo here. I thought he imposed his will. I thought he's showing new wrinkles to his game. I think Brian Manning is, as when he's getting lads to advantageous positions and to dominant positions on the ground, he's landing some heavy shots. And I thought that, it was a solid performance from him. So it was this card, it was a card where a lot less experienced fighters were on it. So the top couple of fights were really the ones that I was interested in here. And yeah, this was one for me. So I thought it was a very solid performance from Brian Manning, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does now. A really solid year for Brian Manning, and looking forward to seeing him in 2024.
Indeed, yeah. No, it's been a solid second half of the year for Brian. Well, I think I don't know whether he fought at the start of the year, but he's kind of come on strong at the start or the second half of 2023, and I expect a big 2024, big wins for him too in these last couple of fights. Caoilte, moving over to you, Ross Queerney versus Elvis Luco via first round submission. Ross Queerney got the win there. What did you think of that performance?
Yeah, look, it didn't last long. That's a massive win for Ross. I think he looked slick in there. Opened up with a big kick, opened up with a big high kick. Looked sharp, looked fast, and then you always think he's going to try and strike, but he always manages to pull off these submissions. Like a lot of his fights are submission victories. He's really good off his back, and this time it was an armbar, and I thought it was it's a really good win on your record to have a win over Elvis Luco, especially if it's a first round submission. So brilliant from Ross. Not sure what's next. He's got a heap of experience, but I'm excited for whatever it is. I know they were handing it there. There's something about this PFL development things, whatever it is, at these Cage Legacies. Maybe Declan Kenna can help us out there. But yeah, I think he called for one of them afterwards. So, yeah.
Declan Kenna, I've been called out today, lads. I've been called out.
Andy Stevens.
Andy Stevens, Declan
Andy Stevens.
I mean, come on, get the name right. Get the name right.
But we're going to have to do the old name test there before we let him onto the podcast. But we'll bring him on. We'll bring him on next time for sure. But we got to talk about this fight. Alex Keogh took on Hugo Lemanas. Head kick KO went viral. I think we have to talk about the matchup here. Because I don't think that Hugo Lemanas was experienced as Alex Keogh coming into this cage. There was some chit chat around him only having a couple of weeks of MMA under his belt. And that's really not what you want to see, Andy. I know you kind of are doing a little bit of digging into that as well, and maybe you want to shed a little bit of light on it as well.
Yeah, so look, obviously it was a great performance from Alex Keogh. He finished Lemanas. I can't remember I don't know how to pronounce his name. Apologies, Hugo. But he finished him with something like 20 seconds with a head kick, where he kind of threw the head kick a number of times and eventually it landed, and it was an emphatic one, as you said, went viral outside of just Irish MMA. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is Alex Keogh is a name that I've heard around for a bit. He's fought on the teen level, and he's been training for a good number of years now, coming up as a teen. And now he's in the amateur ranks. Now, that was all well and good. And then I started kind of getting messages being like, oh, did you know X, Y, and Z about this matchup? And I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't great. So did a bit of digging, and I did confirm. So Hugo has only been training MMA for 3 weeks ahead of this, and apparently had two mates in the corner rather than a coach or a proper cornerman. So to me, this is dangerous. I don't think that's, I think it's a complete mismatch. I don't think that matchups like this should be happening. And we're not just kind of, we're not just calling or looking at this for the sake of it or for the crack of it. It's because this could, we've seen, we watched the UFC at the weekend, and we see, and obviously it's at a much higher level, but like you see Bryce Mitchell getting knocked out cold, and his arms are crossed and his legs are crossed, and he's convulsing in the cage. And you want to, obviously this is MMA, and some people will look at this and say, well, sure, look, this lad's never fought. He's just afraid of MMA or whatever. That's not the case.
That's two high level oppositions going against one another too. Look, I think the importance of, sorry for interrupting here. I think the importance about this and matchmaking this is that in 2016, we had a person die inside of a cage within Irish mixed martial arts, and we don't need something like that happening again. And with matchups like this, you're increasing the possibility of something like that happening again when you have a guy who doesn't have that much experience in there. Look at we're not going to come at Alex here. This is not Alex's fault here. This will be down. Alex went out there and he did what he had to do, and it was a lovely knockout. But you want to give these guys every chance that you can, and we want to see a little bit more fair matchmaking. And, we've talked highly of Cage Legacy and everything like that, but we have to say for what it is here, and it wasn't good matchmaking here. And you don't want to see these matches being made going forward. And why we would be critical of matches like this is for the pure safety and of fighters, number one, and for the legitimacy of the sport in the country of Ireland as well. Whereas that if we do get another bad accident or a bad incident inside of a cage in Ireland, it will be to the detriment of Irish mixed martial arts, and nobody wants that. So look, we know that it's hard to match up fighters. We know that fighters want to fight, but we have to be putting safety first and be safety minded when we're approaching these things. Caoilte, I know that you've seen this quite a bit over in English mixed martial arts, and you're very outspoken about that too. And look, we've called out other fights in Irish mixed martial arts in the past as well. And look, people might come at us for it, but we're going to always call it out as it is. And Andy highlighted it. None of us are really too happy to see that. And, you know, things like this, they cannot continue happening within Irish mixed martial arts.
Yeah, you're dead right. Look, just from the UK, I've seen some ridiculous matchups. Now, the UK is a lot worse than this, or has been. It's a bit of a trend recently where it's happened once, twice. It used to be a lot worse. But anyway, look, this lad he wants to train MMA. He wants to fight in MMA. He's learned his trade. He's gone off and he's gotten the medicals that you require to compete in a cartage in the Republic of Ireland. And fair play to him. I believe he may have some experience in some other sports as well. But he fighting on the likes of a Cage Legacy with no shin guards for your first, against a lad like Alex Keogh in your first fight isn't really it shouldn't happen, to be very honest about it, to be brutally honest about it. Like, look, we have the likes of the national MMA leagues for a reason, where you can go and learn in a safer and compete in a safer environment against lads who have the similar level of experience and go that way. And that's, look, hopefully he gets to go and compete in the national MMA league next and doesn't have to feel the wrath of a shin to the dome 14 seconds into his like amateur debut when he's only training 3 weeks. He doesn't need that damage early on in his career, and he doesn't need to be put in situations like that, especially when there's not a fully qualified coach in the corner. It's a massive requirement, and it's something that should be, it shouldn't happen again. It really, really shouldn't.
100%. Any final thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, it's the safety aspect here. So, you know, you can't have stuff like this, and I guess it does raise the question for me of like, how can someone just rock up and, you know, have their two mates being as their cornerman like that? Because like, let's say if I start a promotion tomorrow and I decide I want to make whatever matchups I want to make, well, why am I able to do that? And so, yeah, look, it's just a safety issue, and I think it's dangerous. And to be fair, I spoke with Declan about this, and he's happy to come on and talk to us about the matchmaking and about, you know, obviously we've talked about the PFL Europe and all that stuff as well. So we should have Dec on, you know, in the new year, and we can talk about it. Because ultimately, I think everyone in Irish MMA wants the sport to be as safe as possible while acknowledging that this is an inherently dangerous sport.
100%. Taking us through the rest of the card, Andy, obviously Shane Dunn picked up a good win and a couple of other wins on the card as well. Take us through it real quickly.
Yeah, so to be honest, the stream wasn't great at this point when we were watching. So the Shane Dunn fight, I didn't actually get to see half of it, but he won by a second round TKO. I think Ben Mee got a nice slam early on, but ultimately Shane got the win. I know I did see the next fight down, which was Abdulmalik Zubairiev, who defeated Nick Rebriano by a first round submission. This lad looks a real talent and a really, really talented grappler. He's fighting out of SBG. He fought on that Premier card a couple of weeks ago against Jordan Scully, and he was very dominant there too. And he went in here, got the takedown, mounted Rebriano pretty early, landed some shots, and got the rear naked choke. And it was a clinical win. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. You know, haven't seen a whole lot of his striking just yet, but his grappling looks superb. So someone to keep an eye on in 2024. And then the next one down, and this was kind of the last one that I'd watched, was Daniela Dobella defeated Lisa Murta. I think both of them, I believe both of them were making their MMA debut here. So look, it was a bit of a cracker of a fight. You know, it was some wild exchanges. The two of them came out swinging, and they put on a hell of a show. But look, it's their first MMA fight, so yeah, it was a fun fight. Ultimately, Daniela got the decision, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on now next year, and if they continue on. You're just on mute there, Ian.
Moving on to Iúr Fighting Championships, Tiernan Lockran obviously picked up a good win, and we speak to Tiernan Lockran actually, and we're going to go probably over to Tiernan Lockran's interview right now to talk about his fight. He picked up a good solid win over Marcus Supe by unanimous decision. been a lot of talk about Tiernan going professional as well. So, it's nice to bring him in, talk about that fight, talk about his plans going forward. So yeah, let's head on over for that interview to Tiernan Lockran right now, and then we'll get back into the Iúr Fighting Championships card when we get back.
And now we welcome back to the Auld Triangle for the second time, Tiernan Lockran. Tiernan, what's the crack? You just finished training?
Yes, boys, all good. I just finished there now, fight academy. Fucking heavy enough out session there. That's probably the last one of the year. So no, just out there now.
From training straight home, and what's the plan in the morning? Something about cows you were saying?
I was saying there, I fucking 62 cows do milk tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Flat out these days. I swear to God, this is the truth. So I won the fight on Sunday night. I was like deadly high. Been a flat out year. A chance to relax. Monday morning, the sister calls me. She's like, "Tiernan, you have to get up." I goes, "What?" She goes, "You have to milk the cows." I goes, "What?" I goes, "What the fuck, boys?" And I've been milking the cows for the last 4 days.
Does your family own a farm, or why are you milking cows?
We're my dad is a big dairy milk farmer, with 62 cows in at the minute.
And then I'm milking cows then.
We grew up milking cows, cleaning calf pens. Doing all that shit.
We're always wondering why yourself and Caolan had such big traps, but that's from obviously milking all those cows through the years, is it?
The traps? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
So would you grow up milking cows then? You're saying, like, you would the two of you been working the farm as young lads?
I swear to God, I actually had this conversation today. So me and Caolan have like a reputation of being quite strong, and people will say this like, "How are you so strong?" I don't know. Not even to be arguing. People do. We do get it a lot. And I said, "Lad, I grew up at 4 years old. I was cleaning calf pens, like literally doing max. Call it a max deadlift from the age of 4. We grew up doing that our whole lives. So." But I'm happy.
That's Caoilte strength, I think they call that.
I believe that's what they call it. I believe that's what they
this
call
is
it.
Everything that, for me as a Dubliner, everything that I think about everywhere outside of Dublin, thankfully you've just confirmed that, Tiernan, so much appreciated.
Yeah, that's explained now.
Tiernan, last night she had the FAI end of year awards. What was it like? Did you any awards? Did you win anything? What was the night like? Sore head today?
No, it wasn't that. I actually missed that. So I thought I don't know. I thought it was dirty enough. They had the gym night out the night before Iúr, so I couldn't go. I don't know. They left me out, but no. Last night was just the awards night. And I won amateur. Me and Damien Wigan won amateur fight of the year. They couldn't separate us. I think Damien, did he go 4-0? He got some massive wins. So the two of us got joint amateur fight of the year, and then I also got fight of the year with Max Lally, which was good. I actually sent that to Max today because I thought he would have liked to see that, because me and Max get on well, and I sent him, and that's what I won. I was over the moon, happy to get them there.
And quite the year, like, after you have to so long in Liverpool training in Team Cabon, and then you come over this year and start training FAI. What, we've not spoken to you since then. Can you actually tell us what that's been like, and what the decision was to come back over, train FAI, and like what impact that's had on you?
So actually, Pat made a bit of a speech last night. So everyone who won the award got a wee bit of a speech, just the way they got their award or whatever. And Pat said to me, he goes, "This lad came to us I think it was February. I joined the gym maybe early February, and he says he wanted fights and he wanted activity, and that was literally it. Like I never kidded myself. I was never one of these guys that's just like, oh, I'll step it up on fight night. I was realistic. I knew that's different. You can do everything you want in the gym. You can do all that. It only matters one place, and there's only one place where you need to switch on. And you can't just do it. You have to be active. Just keep doing it, and you'll get it nailed. And that was the thing. Like I just knew COVID hit at a pretty bad time. I didn't fight for I don't think I fought for a year maybe, and then just wasn't getting consistent fights. That was literally it. And then I went to Fight Academy one Sunday, and I just thought, I was training with Paul, I was training all these Matthew, all these guys, Pat, and I was just like, this just seems right. And it was. I think it was a great move. I look at the years it's had. I'm happy with the decision anyway. Couldn't be happier at the minute, to be honest.
Like when you got there, what was it about them that kind of made you want to just make the move full time, and compared to when you were in Liverpool, like?
Well, you know what it was? When me and Tiernan were in Liverpool, we were like, because Cowbound was known for doing mad rounds. We done like a lot of rounds, but I always believed in that. I always believe you have to do the sport. Like, you're never going to be like, we just done a lot of rounds there sparring the night, and it's Christmas. Everyone's probably tapering off, but we just done, I'll not say the amount of rounds, we've done a lot of rounds, and I always believed in that. I always like, do the fucking sport. Like, don't hit pads on a Monday, hit wrestle on Tuesday. You get to Wednesday, you haven't even sparred MMA. And I came to Fight Academy my first day, and we just done so many rounds, and I got really, really good rounds, and I was like, guys, I know this can work. And then I got a couple of sessions with Pat, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, he is lethal. Got a couple of sessions with Shando. He's fucking class. And then just training with Paul, I was just happy from the go. And that was really it. I just thought it felt like a right move, and I was happy to be at home for a while too. Like, I moved from home at 18, getting home and getting the. It was a big move. It was a big move moving away at 18. Maybe a wee bit too early, I don't know. But I was happy just to stick about the house for a while. And I think it was a great move. I think it's showing now, hopefully.
Tiernan, it's only, you said there like you moved in February. That's only 10 months. You said you wanted to be active and you got 5 fights in. Like, what when it comes to your game itself, like, you've had a very successful year, and it seems that you found a really good fit in FAI. But what about your game specifically has, I guess, come on in the last 10 months under FAI?
Everything. I would say everything. Specifically, I would say like mostly my top game. Like, Pat was talking the other day about, like, so he says you get these top fighters in the UFC. They all have these one things. They all this one skill. It's like, if he hits that position, like, I'm fucked. And I just feel now, like, I don't know, it's my last 3 fights, I've hit top position and I've cleared the hip line, so I've got past their hips. Like, I just feel like when I hit that position now, so if you're talking like what skill in particular, I feel like I've mastered the most or got best at. I feel I've just got game changing, like my hips and clearing elbow lines, just from Pat in general. And then that would probably be the biggest improvement in my game. And then just calmness on fight night. Like, I remember telling Caoilte, I remember talking to Caoilte one time, and I was so young in the game, and I was always like, I remember fighting guys like Teddy Stringer, and I was like, always trying to get myself hyped up. I don't know what was wrong. I was like, I need to be going. I need to be fucking wired. But then now I know, like, I don't know, like, somebody like, I don't know, experienced guys, like the top guys probably tell me, you know, nothing, but like, now I know, now I feel like a calm mind is just the way to be. And I never understood that literally about a year ago, I would say. Even in like the Lally fight, I was too hyped up. I was fucking trying to get myself going. Whereas now I just go with my energy. Like, if I'm so hyped up, pull it back a bit. If I'm feeling flat, or you're not feeling flat, you're actually probably really relaxed. Maybe you're a perfect state of mind. So that's a game changer too. But that's just activity. That's 5 fights. That's what 5 fights in 9 months will do for you. Just comfortable in there now.
Some of our exchanges offline, Tiernan, you know, we would have chatted about a couple of your fights on and off, and I kind of got the impression that you were very hard on yourself at certain times. It has kind of that side of your mentality gotten a little bit better, and just accepting certain things and just, like you said, going with your emotions.
I was nearly like, I don't know, maybe like in those early fights, like I always had like such high expectations of myself. Maybe I was like, I maybe talked it up. I don't know. Maybe I don't know even know what it was. And I was like always in my head like, oh, even more than win. But I don't know. You're probably right. Now it's just go with what happens, and it probably will be enough. If you know what I mean. Like if I just literally go in there and do the basics, as I said before, nearly like a calm mind, just being in the moment. Hopefully you'll look good. Like you probably will look good if you don't put all that, like not trying to force it in a way.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, because look,
it's
at the same time,
it's a mad game.
you want to do your best. You want to do your best as a fighter, right? As an up and coming fighter, you want to do your best, but you also have to balance that with the fact that you're a growing fighter at the same time as well, and that you're going to be getting better and better each time that you're in there. And maybe you're getting a little bit better at kind of balancing that out a little bit more than you are, which is normal, I guess, as you're getting older and you're getting more experience and you're getting more fights. I think the activity levels that you've had over the last year have shown tremendous level of growth in your game and in your mentality. And maybe that's kind of the sole reason why it was that level of activity that you've been speaking about.
Oh, 100%. I know rightly, so this is the honest truth. Before the super fight the other day, me and Keelan were in Cookstown. We were in Cookstown getting a Tim Hortons coffee. We were getting Tim Hortons coffee, and I said I was in the car. Keelan was still in there, and I looked at the fight card, and I was the 12th fight on, I think, and I looked at the card. I was like, oh, well, I'll see where they're at. I looked at the card and there was 4 fights going. I'm in Cookstown. The venue's an hour and a half away. There's 8 fights. There's 8 fights, and then I'm fighting. I looked and Keelan was standing at the counter, and I started sounding the horn. And I was like, we need to go. And I texted back and no, I was like, I don't know if we're gonna make this. But then I feel like if that had happened to me a year ago, I would have completely panicked. Don't get me wrong, I actually did kind of panic. But,
well, before you go any further, you also
I was actually on. I was on.
No, I was going to say, you've been on this show before, and you and Caoilte talked about being in a car and boxing the head off each other. So I'm very interested to hear how this car journey went.
You probably got a couple of warm-up rounds in before you get on the journey up.
I'll tell you this much, I didn't grab the handbrake this time. That's what happened the last time. I grabbed the handbrake. At the time I grabbed the handbrake, Keelan launched the left hook. So I made sure I didn't do that mistake again. This time was a lot more calm. I was like, will you please drive fast? But that's the truth there. And then so I was like, you may send her on to fuck. We need to go. And then we got to the venue. And I was obviously, emotions are quite high. I was really panicking. I did not think I was going to make this fight. And we got to the venue. I done my medicals. And the medic woman actually took my heart rate. And she goes, are you nervous? I was obviously a dickhead about it. I goes, couldn't be calmer. She was like, oh, you're obviously lying. She goes, your heart rate is irregularly high. I was like, I didn't think we were going to make this. I was a bit, she goes, I just calmed down for a second. So that was one thing. But then I was able to calm myself down this time. If that had happened to me a year ago or so, I feel like I would have maybe I don't know, just overthought it and maybe tried to get myself going. Whereas now I was like, all right, fuck it, it's happened. Just relax in a way.
After all the traveling down and the big rush and the fact you're able to calm yourself down, were you happy with how the fight went and your performance? Did you get to showcase kind of everything that you wanted to in that fight?
Yeah. I was actually really happy with it. We had a lot. Me and Keelan, I'll not even say what it is, but not even Keelan, me, there was a lot going on this week. We had a fucking lot going on. The boys where I'm from will know about it. Just a lot going on behind, even away from fighting. So when it all came down to fight night, I was actually just happy. I was just happy to get the win after all of it. But when I watched it back, I thought the performance was pretty solid. I was winning the fight, and then you know what it was? I was winning the fight, and then I sprawled the takedown in the second, and Mark sat his back. And I don't know, I feel like every fighter could relate with me. Mark sat his back, and I got a hold of him, and he kind of I felt him just kind of wilt a wee bit. He just stopped. I passed the knee line, and Pat actually started shouting, a position we have at the minute in the gym is Pat's actually calling it the Lougran clamp. So like when I get the leg lace and kind of move up a wee bit, and I hit that position, and I was able to control him, and then I was just like I can just win here. So why fuck it up in a way, I was thinking. But when I watched it back, I kind of wish I had a pushed for a finish a wee bit more. But Mark was good. Like, he stayed safe. He didn't let me finish him. If I could have finished him, I would have. So I was happy enough. More experience as an amateur, defended the belt, and after a long year, you couldn't complain too much. Like,
Obviously, you mentioned about kind of a lot happened before that fight and outside the fight as well. Something that we noticed before that fight in particular is the number 13 was on your jersey heading out to this fight, and something that seemed to be very important to you to wear on your walkout and to have on after the fight. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how much it meant for you to have that on?
A boy me and Cian both grew up playing football with. Sadly passed away over in Australia, and he would have never missed any of me and Cian's fights. And it was just an awkward situation for me all week, because it was like, what do you do? Like, do you pull out, or like, what do you do with that? And then I was like, I didn't want to make a big scene, like, oh, look at me, I'm doing this or that. I just, when I played football with him, he always wore the number, and that was his favorite number. So I just thought it was a small thing I could do. If he was watching, if you know what, I don't know. I just thought it was a small thing I could do for a bit of. I think Matty his name was Matty. I think Matty would have liked it, like, so. That was the reason.
I think that's a lovely way to honor him. By doing that, like, I think it's a great tribute to him.
It's just a small thing. I didn't want to go anything too mad, but no, that was it. That's fucking the least you can do. It's tough for the family stuff now. But sure, what do you do this?
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very solid performance against Mark. Obviously, beforehand you had your last fight against Rory Lavery, and we were thinking, oh, here's Tiernan going pro now, and of course you rightly corrected us saying, hang on a second now, lads, I've got a fight booked next month. But the question does remain, where do we stand now? I've seen you hinting about going pro. Is that the plan after it? Have you made that decision?
That's the plan. I think I've already said it, but I'll get more into it now. I'm going pro in February. I'm making my professional debut at 70 kilo. That's not going to be a thing. I am not a lightweight. I'm comfortable with featherweight. The only thing is, I've made featherweight 5 times. I've made championship weight, which is big for me. There's no point lying. I'm not a massive featherweight, but I'm definitely a small one. I've made championship weight 5 times this year, 5 times in 9 months. So I'm gonna make my pro debut at lightweight, February 25th on Cage Conflict. I just feel like them excessive weight cuts at my age would be too much, and I couldn't really be bothered. I'm happy enough to fit it lightweight. So yeah, that's I'm finally making the pro debut. I think it's the right move. Like, you look at the scene, and I look at who the guys are around me. Like, to get like the likes of Keith Keogh, he's also going pro. Max is going pro. And then who else really is there? I don't think I could really get up for fighting anyone else. So yeah, I think it's time to go. Like,
for your move Caoilte, for your move to professional, Tiernan, what are you looking forward to most? Longer rounds, throwing elbows? How much of your game do you think that you're going to be able to show us that you haven't been able to show us so far in the amateur ranks?
I would say what you just said, in the elbows, 100%. I think that'll be the biggest thing. So my thing is top game, but it's like, I like to pressure you in to making a mistake, which can nullify my shots, because in amateur I have to go the full way up to get a big shot down. And me and Paul, I've been doing a lot of work with Paul these days in the gym, because Paul is an unbelievable, I'm just going to phone the charger. Paul is an unbelievable ground and pound artist and using elbows. He's absolutely class at it. So me and him have been working that, just keeping chest, elbowing from top. Big things, loads of things. But then just, it's 5-minute rounds. I've always done 5-minute rounds. Like I've never done threes. I only do them like 2 weeks before an amateur fight, just to get a feel of it. But when I move on to the fives, my pace won't go down. It actually might go up. I'll push even harder because I know I can sustain 15 minutes. So yeah, I think the pro game should suit me, but we'll just have to wait and see. Sure.
Tiernan, who are you fighting on that cage conflict card?
I'm actually not 100% sure. I think he's a Greek or something. Shando probably doesn't even know what I think about that. Somebody showed me a photo, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was true or not. But I'll not say who, because the boy will probably get in trouble. But I'm actually not sure. I don't know who it is. I'm not 100% sure. You know, as I'm happy to take it slow. I'm 22 years old, boys. I think I have years left in this sport. I only started at 17. I'm not doing it that long. Like, I'm in no rush. I don't even think I'll hit Cage Wars next year. I'll see what happens. If there's offers there, there's offers there. But I'm happy to stick around the regional scene and then go to Cage Wars and say fucking when I'm 24, 25. I think that's time enough. I don't need to be in the UFC at 24. I don't need to be in the UFC even at 26. Like, you look at these top guys, like Islam Makhachev versus Volk. It's a 32-year-old versus 35. There's a reason. There's a reason these guys are there and they're that age. It's the experience, it's that man's strength, it's understanding of the game. Them boys have forgot more than I've learned. Like, so I'm not gonna rush. I'm not gonna rush into anything. I'll take my time and I just see what happens. Take a year, build a record, build experience, and do it that way.
It's a kind of a refreshing take to hear, because we, like, the amount of times we'll often hear people they'll want to try and get to a certain level as quick as they can, usually, obviously because there's not much money in the game, but to kind of grind it out on the regional scene and build your record and then move on to Cage Wars. Is that just to kind of make sure that you're fully ready before you take the big leap into the big leagues and then try and push for whatever, a belt and then UFC and so on?
That's exactly it. Like, all these boys talk about money. Like, fuck me. Like, if you're in this game for money, like, I'm not saying you can't make money from this sport, but you have to be very patient with your time. Like, say I do think, I am good enough for Cage Wars now. Like, I honestly don't think I'm that far off it. I actually know I'm not. Like, I look at the Cage Wars division. I look at that Cage Wars division. Who's the number 3 again in Cage Wars? Like, Luke Riley. I know I would run straight through Luke Riley. Who's number 2? Paul's a massive exception. Paul's the Cage Wars featherweight champion, but I feel like that's very unlucky. He should 100. He's a top 10 in the UFC, I think. I honestly believe. I think Paul is 100% top 10 in the UFC right now. I think he's world class. But you look at the rest of that division, I don't fear one of them. But that doesn't matter. That literally doesn't matter. I think it's like if I beat them guys, that doesn't mean I can go to the UFC and beat a fucking 12-2 All-American wrestler who's 31 years old. It's a completely different game. So, like, I need to be going to Cage Wars. You need to be going to Cage Wars and absolutely smoking these guys, which is what Paul and Keown did, and Ian. That's what you have to be doing. So, build up to that. You're literally. It's not really even a challenge. You're literally running through Cage Wars, and then I think go to the UFC. That's what I think anyway. And as far as money, like fuck me, like sponsors and stuff. It's just. I think it's just about being patient. Like, it's just get used to it. I don't know.
Tiernan, when someone turns pro, I definitely fall into the trap of immediately kind of going down this, what's your plan? Is it Cage Wars? Is it Bellator? Is it PFL? What is the route when, as you're saying there, maybe some fighters and a lot of fighters probably just need to focus on, the first few fights on the Irish scene and then think about it. However, you've mentioned Cage Wars a number of times there and the UFC. And of course, your brother had great success in Cage Wars. He became the champion. He's now in the UFC. Are you set on that? Is that the path that you want to? I don't know if emulating your brother is the right way of phrasing it, but following in his footsteps.
100%. these guys talking about these PFL, like these PFL contracts making that money and all, but like I'm in this. I set out in this game for one thing: it was to be a UFC world champion. Fucking, if I was to choose right now, UFC world champion or PFL champion, and fucking I don't know, double my money be PFL champion, I wouldn't even think twice. I get in this game for one reason. So if that means going broke for an extra 2 years, I don't give a fuck. Like I don't know. I would never rule anything like that out. Like it's that. This is the game. Like boys want to get paid, and that's fair enough. But for me, it's always been one goal, and that'll never change until I know that I can't do that. That'll be a tough day to accept. But if that comes, it comes. Like, but I'll keep chasing it.
One thing,
gives me a bad beating.
One thing that I think is very authentic, and I also find it quite amusing about your brother, is the way he kind of comes across. He's quite he's not afraid to speak his mind, let's just say, when it comes to opponents in various divisions in various organizations. Can we expect a similar Tiernan Lockran in Cage Warriors in time, or maybe a more reserved personality?
I don't know. Like it depends how I feel. Like if I'm fighting like a nice guy, I'll probably leave it. Like I'll maybe give him a bit of shit. I'll say how I feel. If he's shite or off his back, I'll tell him that. If I feel like I can beat him somewhere, I will tell you. I'm gonna literally annihilate you. But if I would never force anything. I don't know. I'll just speak how I feel. And we'll see what happens. If they upset me, I'll maybe get really personal. I'll find out some weird shit.
We won't keep you any longer, Tiernan, and we know you have a busy morning ahead of yourself with all the cows. You can send us on a couple of cartons of milk, maybe, perhaps, for having you on the Auld Triangle podcast. And if you're looking for a bit of help, you know what, Andy Stevenson, bring him up there, give him a taste of the country life, give him a taste of the culture life.
I'd break out in fucking hives.
That double of mom would do nothing but slow me down.
Yeah, listen now, pal. I worked on a ranch in Uruguay for 2 days, so stick me on a horse, no bother.
Oh, you'd be all set then.
Thanks very much, Tiernan. It was we're delighted to have you on.
Yeah. Oh, anytime, boys. Absolutely anytime, anytime.
Take care, Tiernan. It was great to have you on. Great year for you. And appreciate your time, man. We'll talk to you again down the line.
Yes, boys, 100%. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Alrighty. Iúr Fighting Championships went down. Magazurbarov in the main event against Dylan Douglas took home a split decision. Andy, are you going to cover this one? Do you want to take us through the card? Or Caoilte, did you want to jump in for one or two of these?
Yeah, sure. I'll fire ahead anyway. So I thought this was a really, really solid card. So actually, do you know what? I'll work my way up. So let's start around Shea Latham. So Shea Latham defeated Declan Ryan via second round TKO. This was a really fun fight. I thought Latham looked really, really solid on the feet. He was putting it on Ryan early on. Ryan then kind of got a big takedown and was looking for a Von Flue choke at one point. Now he didn't get it in the end, and Latham I think ended the round on top and landed shots. But it was a really fun kind of back and forth round. I would have given that one to Latham definitely for the shots he landed on the feet. And then again round two, back and forth. Some bit of grappling against the cage. Latham got the takedown and landed some ground and pound from the guard. Ryan threw up an armbar, but ultimately didn't get it, and Latham got to a dominant position and started landing shots and kind of got a buzzer beater TKO then in the end, which I think was a good stoppage by the ref. The next one up was Shea Clennan's. So Shea Clennan's one of the flyweights. You know, we talked earlier on about how many there's so many flyweights at amateur right now. He's a really, really promising looking one coming out of Team Torres and Yuri. He was going in here against a much older guy in Paul Nolan. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see a whole lot of it. So Clennan landed a low blow early on, and Andrew McGann described it as, he was like, I've covered MMA at the domestic level, the regional scene, internationally, and this is the worst low blow I've seen in the 13 years or whatever that he's been around. So yeah, a rough one. It ended in a no contest, which is obviously unfortunate for both lads. Now, despite that, I will just kind of highlight Clennell has had a brilliant year. He finished 4-1 in the year, and obviously the no contest as well. But a really, really impressive year. And there's a lot of, the SevereMMA awards will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And there's a lot of amateurs that I think were really kind of outstanding this year. So whoever wins, whoever doesn't win, there's loads of them that have been really impressive and I think probably deserve to be spotlighted. The next one up was Tiernan Lockran. For me, coming into this event, I kind of said it beforehand, this is my main event. Obviously the focus has been on, Tiernan inching towards turning pro. We just spoke with him there. You'll all have heard. As you're aware, he is turning pro. He's going to be making his pro debut in February, as he said. And this was his last one at AMI. So he went in against a guy here, Mark Soup from Hooligan Martial Arts, who's looked solid himself over the last kind of year or two. And I thought Tiernan was clinical. He never really, to be honest, really looked like he broke a sweat here. He went in, he used his grappling well. I thought his striking looked good. He didn't necessarily have to go to his striking a whole lot here. And ultimately, it was kind of a textbook Tiernan Lockran performance here. Dominant on the scorecards, 30-27 across the board. I don't know if either of you if you saw there have anything to add there.
Unfortunately, no. On my travels, I've not had the chance to look back at that Iúr event just yet, but it is available.
You've had a lot going on, Ian, to be fair.
There is available if anybody does want to watch back, though.
It is. If you go to the Iúr Instagram and click the link, you can watch it for free now, which is brilliant. And to be fair, Iúr are always brilliant at making the events accessible after the fact and putting them on YouTube and stuff. So much appreciated. Did you have something to say there, Caoilte, about that one?
About the Tiernan fight? Yeah. No, fantastic. Look, it's one of those, similar to one before where we were like, oh, is it time now for him to go pro? He looks so good, and how the style almost suits 5-minute rounds better is what I kind of came out of it thinking. I thought he looked brilliant. The wrestling's going to be a massive problem. He was able to impose himself so well, and with the positions that he's able to get in, as we spoke to him there, is like where he from those positions, the opportunity to land elbows will be lethal and clinical for him when he's able to do so. So brilliant performance, really tough opponent, and he did well to put on such a dominant performance. So very excited to see what's next. And we already heard from him, and it seems to be a really exciting future.
Yeah, refreshing to hear him say that, wasn't it? Like the way he wants to kind of fight on the regional scene first, says he doesn't want to go into Cage Warriors for maybe 3 or 4 fights, and then he says he won't be wanting to go progressing from Cage Warriors to the UFC until he's 26, 27. So a lot of people seem to be in a rush to get to that stage. He doesn't seem to be in a rush at all. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders as well, and obviously following in the footsteps of his brother Caolan as well. He'll have some good guidance there too at the same time. So
and an ambitious mentality as well, where he talked to us about. He referenced Keith Kyo and Max Lally and saying, they're kind of gone pro now, so there's not really matchups there at amateur that kind of excite him or want him. So he's clearly looking to test himself because he's looking at the best in the country and thinking, I want to fight them, I want to compete against them. So that shows kind of a winning mentality and someone who's looking to grow with an ambitious lad. So I think that the move to pro is correct. Just wrapping up the cards, there's a couple more fights. So and Tiernan,
are you hosting here now, or am I hosting?
Oh, sorry there.
Settle down, Gerard. Or wrapping up the card? Or are you wrapping up the work card?
No, the card. No, Jesus.
You're trying to take the
No. I'd never.
Wrap up your card here.
We've 3 more Iúr fights.
All right, go ahead there.
So Tiernan retained his featherweight title. The next one up was the lightweight title. So Sam Simon and Jake Gilpin went to war. This is a great striking battle. The 2 lads throwing bombs. I thought it was very back and forth, very high level. And to be honest, at the end of the fight, I didn't know who was going to get the decision. In the end, Sam Simon won the light welterweight title by unanimous decision. So 29-28, 30-27, and 30-27. Second from the tops of the final amateur fight of the night, a brilliant performance by Corey McLaughlin against Nathan McGillen here, winning by a 3rd round TKO. Giving Andrew McGahan another hat tip here. McLaughlin landed a low blow, and he was like, he's after getting a shot to the McGillians there. So fair play to Andrew McGahan and his budding comedy career. A lot of grappling in round 1. They kind of called it so. McLaughlin had a handcuff and he was landing a lot of heavy shots, and they were kind of dubbing it the Belfast handcuff. But yeah, this was a dominant enough display, to be honest, from Corey McLaughlin. I thought once he got to the dominant positions in the grappling areas, he was landing heavy shots. And he is another fighter to look out for, who's had a great year. And then finally, in the main event, we had a pro lightweight contest between Maga Zarabov and Dillian Douglas. It was a split decision in the end. It wasn't the greatest of fights, if I'm honest. But look, it was a grueling one. I thought Douglas landed some nice shots in the first. Zarabov was kind of looking to grapple. Probably, I think Douglas won that first round 10-9, and then from there, I would have given the final 2 rounds to Zarabov. So, look, a really solid card from Iúr, who always put on good shows, good matchmaking. And yeah, that was my wrap up. So now, Ian, I'll hand it back over to you. I promise.
I thought when you handed it over to Caoilte that you're finished. I thought you wanted to take up my responsibilities.
No. I don't want that smoke. I don't want that smoke.
I want to finish off with Gerard Burns' win over Hussein Maki at Brave on December 15th in Bahrain. Like, we always talk about fighters going over there to Brave and the likes. Even in Combate Globals, you're going to be fighting some homegrown talent. And Gerard Burns went over there and absolutely smoked this guy. Really good performance. Paddy McCurry in his corner. Gerard Burns is definitely one to look out for. But did you see that one, Caoilte?
Sure did. And wow, what a performance. Only took him 61 seconds just to get the finish. Not much to really say about it outside the finish. He caught him with a lovely, was it right uppercut, left hook, and then followed up and landed a massive right hand, and that was it. Referee stepped in then. He looked sharp from what I've seen, how long the fight actually even lasted. And way to upset a crowd. You're fighting against the hometown Bahrain fighter that before the event is getting hyped up, and Gerard's being brought in there. Let's be real, he's being brought in there to lose in front of a Bahrain crowd. And he goes in and he just silences the place. And you can see the camera panning to the corner of his opponent, and the sheer look of it was pretty cruel, to be honest. The sheer look of just shock or disappointment was quite the image. And then it cuts back and you see Paddy McCurry doesn't even wait for the cage door to open. He just jumps over the cage and they celebrate and have a great time. And they silenced an entire arena in Bahrain. Not many people can say that. Unbelievable performance from Gerard Burns. 4-1 now, and if people should be really keeping an eye out for him this year, because that was a massive win, and he called for the flyweight belt afterwards as well in Brave. So look, I don't know if you get that next, he could be a fight or two away, but I think Brave should be hanging on to him.
Flyweight champion the fella that beat Jose Shorty Torres?
No, that was actually that was bantamweight. So it's bantamweight.
Right. Jeez, yeah, because that would be it. He'd be a hefty challenge for Gerard at this stage of his career. But that's a kind of a pointless argument at this stage. But that wraps us up for episode 47 of the Auld Triangle. We got through a lot of stuff. It was great to hear from Tiernan and to catch back up on all the action over the last couple of weeks in Irish mixed martial arts. We'll be back maybe, I don't know if we'll get one in before the year. We'll do the year-end show, but the year-end show will probably be maybe in 2024. We're going to, I think Andy is traveling and stuff like that, so we will get that done as soon as possible. We'll wrap up, we'll bring a few guests on, we'll have a bit of crack and all of that. So thanks to everybody for listening. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and we will talk to you very soon. Caoilte, see us out.
Míle maith agaibh, agus slán go fóill.